Coming to you from BIGGLEWORTH Studios, it's time to wake up Florida. Today, from Snake Education with a Twist, is Chief Todd Rowley and mobile app designer James Henry Deter Jr. I'm Ella. Today's episode, The Invasion of the Burmese Python. Please welcome Aarti Seaton.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's time to wake up Florida. This is the best audience we've ever had here on Wake Up Florida. Isn't that right, Ella?
Absolutely, and it's because they're here to see the best talk show about Florida.
Well, today's episode is all about the Everglades National Park and the invasive species disrupting the ecosystem. To elaborate on this, I'd like to introduce to the stage the owner of Snake Education with a Twist. He has spent over 20 years around wildlife and quite the local celebrity. Wake Up Florida, please give a warm welcome to Mr. Todd Rowley. Greetings, Mr. Oof. Now, should we call you Todd, Mr.
Actually,
Rowley?
Chief would be best.
Chief would be best.
Chief is, it's kind of like Cher Madonna. There's no last name. It's just Chief.
You do. Wonderful. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you, Chief. I'm curious to know your backstory. How was it that Mr. Todd Rowley became the Chief?
Oh, that's a good question, Aarti. What that was a long time ago. Knowing that my father was in the Navy, a chief in the Navy, he earned his title. Mine is more of a catchphrase. I was known as Little Chief back in the day because my dad being the chief. Then I ended up working for Eckerd Youth Alternative Program, and that's a program where the kids were out there working on their issues. And instead of being Mr. or Mrs., we were Chief Todd or Chief Susie and stuff. So when I left that organization, I kind of kept the name Chief, and it's stuck ever since.
Oh, I like it. Very clever. And could you tell me a bit more about your organization, Snake Education with a Twist?
Yeah, Snake Education with a Twist has been around for quite a few years, and we're all about educating the public. A lot of people have fears about the snake, and it's basically ignorance. Not in a negative way, it's just what we don't know. And what I want to do is be able to have people understand the difference, the characteristics between venomous and non-venomous snakes. So next time they see one at a safe distance, we want to make sure that they can tell the difference, and also the benefits of snakes, whether you like them or not.
Right, right. Now you're here to tell us a bit more about the Burmese pythons, am I correct?
Yes, the Burmese Python, which is now established here in Florida.
And how did they get to Florida?
Well, the Burmese Python comes from Southeast Asia. And back in the 1980s, they started making their way into the pet trade. Now, what you need to understand is Florida is a huge reptile pet trade. And South Florida is where we get a lot of those imports. So the pet trade started picking up. The Burmese Python became very popular with a lot of reptile keepers. And breeders started making businesses and stuff. And what happened was, with all those breeders' establishments in 1992, Hurricane Andrew came through at a Category 5, basically wiped out some of those establishments, which helped get the Burmese pythons established here in Florida, unfortunately.
Right. Interesting. Now, I heard that these snakes can get up to 18 feet long. Is that correct?
You are right. They can actually go up to 20 feet.
Wow.
Their average is about 12 to 16 feet. Now, keeping in mind at that length, you would have a weight of anywhere from about 50 to 200 pounds.
That's incredible. But these pythons are producing problems, right?
They are. Yes, they are. In South Florida, it's not as bad as the media is making it out to be, but they are invasive species, just like a lot of other things. And Mother Nature has a way of kind of healing itself and adapting to this. The Burmese python doesn't really have a lot of natural predators outside of the alligators, the crocodiles, and man, of course. But they are eating a lot of the mammals, the rabbits, and all types of things like that. But they are, again, in South Florida, and they will eat. Now, keep in mind, another thing would be the freeze. Florida weather can determine whether or not these things can live. Where the ground can freeze, they will not survive, and if it's really cold, these guys will not do well.
Interesting, very interesting.
They are.
Gotcha. Ooh, that's a little bit scary, eh?
It is a little bit.
And would you mind holding that thought really quickly? We have to go to commercial.
Wake Up Florida is sponsored by BIGGLEWORTH Studios, makers of The Invasion of the Burmese Python. Now back to you, Aarti.
Thanks, Ella. And we're back with the chief who has been telling me about invasive species in the Everglades National Park. Thank you.
You are welcome.
Now here to discuss a modern twist on snake education is James Henry Deter Jr., the creator of the Invasion of the Burmese Python app. Let's welcome him to the show today. James, it's so good to have you on the show. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to finally meet you, Miss Aarti.
Jane.
Chief, Tiny, how are you doing?
We're so glad to have you here to Wake Up Florida today, James.
Thank you, Miss Aarti. I'm a huge fan of the show.
We do have some great and huge fans of this show today.
I've seen every episode.
Have you really?
Absolutely.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So let me start by asking, what is the Invasion of the Burmese Python, or IBP, as I have heard you say it?
IBP is an interactive documentary I intend to produce to spread awareness on the invasive species in the Everglades National Park. My company, BIGGLEWORTH Studios, is developing this app which allows the users to assume the role of a snake on a virtual expedition.
I'm not quite positive I understand entirely. Would you mind elaborating a bit more on this?
Of course, imagine that you were viewing a nature show, except you could directly manipulate the events that were occurring. The encounters were dictated on the choices that you made.
I see, I see. And can I test it now?
Absolutely.
Oh, great. Let's take a look here. Perfect. And how do I play it?
Well, you draw the path of the snake, and you hunt your prey using the same techniques that they use in nature. So you strike, constrict, and you survive.
That's not too bad. Very short learning curve. This is really cool, James. It reminds me of the old Nokia game Snake, except more extreme.
Actually, it's the Invasion of the Burmese Python, and if anyone is interested, they can download the prototype from my website, BIGGLEWORTHstudios.com, for Android.
Oh, wonderful. Now, I am curious to know how you came up with the idea for this app. Mind going into that a little bit?
I was watching Animal Planet last summer, and they were talking about constricting snakes,
Right.
such as Tiny here, and they measured the PSI. They said it was equivalent to a bus crushing a human body. And I thought to myself, that's a superpower in nature. That would be really cool to implement that as a game feature in an app, because the touchscreen would work perfect to maneuver the snake and wrap it around prey. So that's when I started working on the concept for the invasion.
Okay, very interesting. And tell us a bit more about the Rocket Hub crowdfunding campaign. Why do you choose them?
I was able to come to the conclusion that Rocket Hub best suited me since I'm a newcomer to the mobile industry, and the other sites are more reserved for established creators that are already well known, and they're seeking independence from their own companies.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to those interested in what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I want the audience to know that my children think everything is a touchscreen.
Right.
Televisions, computer monitors, and if the next generation is going to be tied to these smart devices, I want to provide them with some entertaining content with educational substance. I don't want to make the next Angry Birds or Candy Crush. I want my app to complement those titles.
Wonderful, wonderful, James. Thank you so much for that insight into your app and into the BIGGLEWORTH Studios. And thank you so much, Chief, for enlightening us on Burmese pythons.
You are welcome.
Really do appreciate that. That's all we have time for today. And remember, support for the Invasion of the Burmese Python app is thanks to viewers just like you. I'm glad we were able to cover this without any real incidents on the set.
Thank you so much for having me. Actually, there is wait for just one moment.
Oh, dear.
I have misplaced something.
Wake Up Florida is sponsored by the BIGGLEWORTH. Sorry, it's not the, is it?
We do have a lot of awesome fans on this show. Just messed that up. He was supposed to say, we're so glad. It's not his fault, but yeah, sorry. And can I test it now or take a look at it?
Oh, absolutely. I have it with me right now, but I don't have it with me right now because she's got my camera.
Oops. Sorry.
That's James's line.
I don't see anything.
I'm glad we were able to cover this without any incidents on the set.
Well, actually, there is one going on. Well, I'm not exactly sure where I put her food, but it's running around here somewhere right now. Maybe we can get that app to find it. I'm just saying. Well, that'll get people to leave.
Oh, that's great. Well, James, I want to thank you so much for coming to the show and talking about that great app and introducing us to Bigglesworth Studios. And thank you, Chief, for enlightening us on the matter.